the thing that so this is the thing that
Mm-hmm.
is kind of the overarching theme of this for me, which is that they say that they don't want people going out for external help outside of the game, and they want people to experience it for themselves, right? And they want people to figure stuff out, which I'm all for, right? I'm all for that. But you can't then also say, I'm not going to fix this very simple UI change that makes it impossible for new players to buy items. And things like that, right? It's like if you literally don't give people the information, they are going to go and look elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like, as I said, like I alt-tabbed out of the game almost instantaneously to ask about.
Welcome to ScavTalk, an Escape from Tarkov podcast with a focus on the continuing development of the game, theory crafting, content creation, and gameplay discussions. I'm one of your hosts, Church.
And I'm your other host, GigaBeef.
And welcome to the show. This episode, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. And we're specifically going to be talking about the new player experience and giving you guys sort of our thoughts. GigaBeef, you're actually, for your content creation side, you focus a lot on new player experience. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I do sometimes, I stray into other areas, but I would say that the broad themes is usually, players at the newer end of the scale. So not all of it's for brand new people, but yeah, I mean, there's just so much to learn. Even somebody who's only been playing for 6 months or something still usually has a lot to learn and doesn't really know the full game. So I think that's why it kind of lends itself quite well, because there's just so much to talk about, so much for people to figure out. Yeah, I mean, what did you want to focus on first? There's an awful lot to unpack in terms of the new player experience in EFT. It's difficult. Have you played with many new players recently, or?
So recently, yes. One of my friends I used to play Apex Legends with, he was like, been watching the game, and then I think he played like a few times prior to this wipe. And yeah, he just got really interested in the game, and so I was like, heck yeah, dude, let's play. And then one of his buddies started playing, and then another one of his buddies were playing, and yeah, they're all pretty relatively new, and it's just been super insightful, to sort of like how much I've taken for granted, some of the things.
Yeah, I think that's like 100% the truth, because you forget kind of how much you know, and you're just like, yeah, things that you just assume when you're playing for probably a year plus at that stage. It's you kind of figure out so many different bits and pieces. I did a stream last week with my sister, which was fun, and she played the game. I mean, this is kind of the second time that she's properly played, so she remembers quite a bit from the first time. But even still, there's like so many little things that you just don't realize. I mean, even when you've got somebody who's kind of experienced, like guiding you through, there's still so many different questions, just like random stuff, like, oh, you need to heal your thorax with the med. Okay, that's fine. It's like, right, now you need to take a painkiller. It's just like, well, where do I drag that to? I'm like, oh, no, you don't drag that. You right click and press use. And it's like, okay, so you have to use the two different meds in two different ways to get the effect that you want out of it. It's just like little things like that just they just make it more difficult for people who are starting. It is an interesting one. I mean, yeah, I've got some thoughts if you want me to go first, in terms of like things that people initially struggle with. I think when I very first started my channel, I tried to begin with like an overview kind of beginner's guide, like a very very basic.
That was like
guide.
Your first one of your
first things
videos,
that
right?
I did. It was me kind of learning how to do video editing and actually record videos and make just make this content in general. But that was kind of interesting, because that was like the proper basics. And even things like, I remember when I first started playing, right, and like coming from PUBG, it's kind of a long that, it's not a milsim, but it's kind of along that route, much more so than an arcadey type FPS. And just the number of controls in Tarkov, I remember being quite overwhelming, and I was quite
There is a
excited about
lot.
it. And
Yeah.
just like being able to control your move speed all the way, in a sort of graduation, and being able to control your
Yeah.
height for a crouch
Yeah.
in different ways, just using controls and trying to like learn the muscle memory for those things. My God, like it took a long time. It took a long time to fix that stuff, just because it's just not like that in any other game. And
Yeah.
I think there's those kind of things are like the very, very first hurdle that people have. And some other basic stuff. I mean, I remember loading the game up, starting it for afresh, and then Googling almost instantaneously, does it matter if you pick Bear or USEC? Because it doesn't tell you anything
Yeah.
about what that's going to do, whether there's like,
Yeah.
stories line stuff behind it, whether it's going to change the loadouts. Like it says nothing. And it's just like, do you want to play as America or Russia? And you're like, I have no idea. Like,
Yeah.
and I distinctly remember that. And I was Googling it, just like, does it mean I can't play with my friends if I'm on USEC? Because that was the biggest worry for me, is that like, if you're on a different team, you can play with other people that you know, right? Because that happens. There's like, I've played so many games where that happens. And the fact that it just doesn't tell you up front, even just a simple thing of, don't worry, you'll be able to play with anybody no matter which one you pick, or this is kind of what this does. You'll start off with a Russian Arsenal or American Arsenal in terms of your stash, like it is now. I think it could do with like just some little bits in that way. Like the game can be hardcore and be difficult and hard without just being like purposefully just like opaque and obtuse. So it doesn't need to be
Yeah.
like that. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't make it, I don't feel like it lessens the experience of the game in some way by telling you what picking USEC or Bear does.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like the very first pieces of the new player experience like that are rough. And I think there's one particular piece I was going to touch on this, like to start with, about the
Mhm.
unintuitive UI. And I'm kind of monologuing a little bit, but I'll let you speak
Keep
in a
going.
second. And my one least favorite piece of the UI of all things is something that we forget about as experienced players, which is the very first time you visit the traders, you actually can't figure out how to buy anything, because you have to click the thing. You click buy, then you click the
Mm.
thing, and then you're like, how the hell do I buy this? And it just says you don't have the required items. And you have to go down to the bottom. There's a little checkbox that says, tick, autofill with the required items amount. And once you check that, it autofills it with rubles every time you go to the page. You never have to do it again. But the very first time you go in, it's
Oh
like,
my god, I do
and
remember
everyone
that.
forgets that you
Yeah.
have to do this. And every single person that I've played with that tries to go in first time, I'm just like, oh, just go and buy, whatever it is that I'm telling them to go and buy from like a balaclava or something. And they're just like, how do I buy from this guy? Like, why is this
I
so
do remember
difficult?
that. Yeah.
And it's just like, so that's probably my least favorite piece of design, because it happens immediately, and it just annoys everybody. And it's not really a big issue, because after that it's fixed, but it's just kind of unnecessary, right? And it's like, when you take a step back and you look at some of the UI design, you think they really could do with an overhaul of some of this stuff, right? It's like you have to click here, and then we've made leaps and strides in terms of navigating around in general, because now we've got all the tabs and stuff, so that does make it a bit better. But when you go in and you have to click the buy tab, and then click the thing, and then you have to click there, and you have to press this, and there's a lot of clicking. There's a lot of clicking. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of question marks on some of their choices, but I mean, like, it's tough because the game's still in beta, so a lot of, like, the, I don't wanna say tutorial, but even, like, just, like, explain to them, like, "Hey, this is a bear, this is the faction, this is what this means whenever you pick this faction," you know?
Yeah.
Even that just seems, like, so down the road in their priority list, I would imagine anyways, I don't know.
Yeah, I would guess so. I'm just not entirely sure why. I guess it's just because, like, the thing that, okay, so this is the thing that
Mhm.
is kind of the overarching theme of this for me, which is that they say that they don't want people going out for external help outside of the game, and they want people to experience it for themselves, right? And they want people to figure stuff out, which I'm all for, right? I'm all for
Yeah.
that. But you can't then also say, I'm not going to fix this very simple UI change that makes it impossible for new players to buy items,
Oh,
and
that's
things
so
like that, right? It's like if
mwah.
you literally don't give people the information, they are going to go and
What do
look
you
it elsewhere,
yes,
right?
yeah,
Like as I said,
yeah,
like I alt tabbed out of the game almost instantaneously to ask about Bear versus USEC because it's important, right? And if you've played lots of different games before, you know that it can be really critical, and that if you start play for 5 hours or something, and then your friend joins and they go, oh well, I want to play as the Russians, and then it turns out 10 hours later that you can't actually play with each other, it sucks. And people who've been playing games all their lives like me know this, and I think most of us do, that you can fall into these pitfalls quite easily. And we kind of like, I don't know,
mhm.
it's like my spidey sense is tingling, when there's something like that. I'm like, oh, factions. Oh, that must mean something. It must mean
Yeah,
something, right?
I
Why
mean,
would
it
it be
gives
there if it
you
doesn't mean anything?
right, it has a you have an option, it has to be important, this seems like one of those things that you can't change. I mean, you
Yeah,
don't know as a player, but you just kinda assume, like, this looks important, there's 2 different options
exactly,
here, you know what I mean?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So, like, I mean, at this point, right, what I've talked about so far, we haven't even pressed the escape from Tarkov button,
No.
right? We've created a character, we've decided on a faction, and we've tried to buy a balaclava, and then we've had, it's just like there's a lot of roadblocks there.
Yeah.
I feel like some of these things should be quite easy to fix though. And this is the thing, it should be quite straightforward. Maybe the UI less so, but even just like some basic things, and I'll touch a bit more on this later in terms of information in the game, because I think that they could do a bit of a better job there. But I don't know, like in as much as it is frustrating in some ways, I do remember also quite enjoying it, because you don't know really what's wrong about it when you first play, right? You're just experiencing it, and just like the bewildering complex nature of the whole system that they'd set up, I
Yeah.
was like, oh my goodness. And there's like the trade, even at level 1 traders, right? Because you don't know what to expect, really. And then I think the only real equivalent that I've seen of that is kind of like, I don't know, other RPGs like Diablo 2 and that kind of stuff, which sort of looks similar with the traders and whatnot. And but you're looking through and you're like, oh my goodness, look at all this stuff. There's like stuff everywhere. And there's bits for everything. This is insane. And it was quite, honestly, I was quite excited when I first started to play. I was excited because I was like, this is like nothing I've ever played before. Like, why can I buy like a hammer for a pistol? This is ridiculous. Like, it's just crazy. So it's kind of like, I think that does temper it a lot, because people are excited to play and really have no idea what's going on. And it's like that experience of dragging yourself up the cliff face learning curve that is actually quite fun. At least I enjoy it. And enough other people seem to enjoy it too, to keep playing, given all the influx of new people and things. And
I think
yeah, just with like, I don't know, so many content creators helping people out, I think it's that kind of helps.
yeah.
What were you going to
I
say?
think there's, like, a good fine line or, like, they need to adjust where they are on the spectrum, but there's, like, a fine line between spoon-feeding information and then you having to, like, read a book on how to build a gun on it so you can apply it to a video game. You know what I mean? There's like a good fine line in between. Like if they want to be like, okay, we want you to, within the game, you know, learn and experience and find the information. But like half the information isn't in the game. Probably that's probably not even fair to say. Probably like 20% information's in the game. The rest you have to go on the wiki, you know what I mean? Like, they
Yeah,
don't have all the tools there, all the resources in the game for you to do what they want you to do, you know?
exactly. I think they have made some strides towards making things better. I was just trying to think about what they've changed since I started playing, and stuff like adding the preset screen for weapons
Yeah.
and things just helps so much. Before then, yeah, literally like trying to figure out what the meta weapons were on your own, like trying to piece stuff together and not even being able to try it, because you have to buy everything. And when you're super scrub and you're first starting, you like don't have enough money to buy anything, and so you're like, well, I'm scared to buy all this stuff because it's like half of my money. I have to like, it might not even fit because it says
Do you
it's
remember the
compatible, but like it might not work.
you remember the first time you unlocked the flea market?
Yes, but I think I was kind of in anticipation of it because I kind of looked it up already
Oh, you cheated.
a little bit. But this is the thing, because like, so what I found was that while I was on the train, I would read I basically read the
Mhm.
wiki. Like
Yeah.
this is the kind of
To
this is the
get
kind of
you
person I am
yeah.
anyway. I basically read the wiki
Yeah.
for like 2 weeks straight, pretty much, something like
Yeah.
that, while I played. And so it did kind of like I did leap ahead in terms of knowledge over actual like in-game kind of
Right.
experience, I suppose. Just because it was like it's dead time, and I want to figure out. I've heard all sorts of stuff about the modular health system, and the way that the weapons handle, and the ballistics. I think that's what dragged me in the first place, was kind of the fully realistic ballistics, and the fact that the bullet matters, not the gun, like in every other game. And that
Mhm.
was kind of where I first started. And it's just like once you start tugging on that thread on the wiki, it's just like the whole thing unravels, and it's just like completely, just takes over your life, like reading this thing. So yeah, I just used to spend like all my traveling time just reading the wiki and like trying to figure out like how in God's name does this game actually function, and how does this stuff work. But yeah, I mean, the fleet was super exciting. I mean, do you have like a specific? I remember unlocking it and being excited to kind of buy lots of stuff. But like, do you have a specific experience of unlocking the
I
fleet?
just remember being like, "God, this is like the forbidden fruit of the garden." There's all the knowledge is came down to me because there's like a million. Like you go to like, oh, link search my AK-74 SU, and it's like, oh my god, what am I doing? Like what? How do I get a grip on my AK? It was like it took me forever to figure it out. And once
Ah,
I figured it out,
yes.
then it was like I have 4 choices. The one that doesn't do anything, the stock one, and I have the Goliath handguard, and I have the B11, and then I have, like, the XRSU one, whatever it's called, and it's just, like, it's so like, you have to click back and forth to see the stats, and you look at the price. I ended up going with the Goliath because I was a total noob, and I thought it looked cool, and, it had, like, rails on it.
It
I was
does look
like,
cool.
"Okay, well, this can definitely work." And then I went to put the muzzle on, I was like, "Wait a minute, I can't put the muzzle on." So then I had to buy a different suppressor because I bought the wrong one, and it was just like it was such a like I probably overpaid so much for that gun, but I was so proud of that gun. My Goliath handguard GigaBeef, I was so proud of it. I thought it looked so cool. When the factory died instantly.
And that's the thing, right? Like, I think that's you do feel so proud when you figure it out. I remember speaking to it was the other friend who bought it at the same time as me,
Mhm.
and we were both in the stash, and we were just trying to figure out. I can't even remember what exact combination we were trying to do, and I'd like figured it out. I had it all figured out. I was like, I know how to put scopes on AKs now. I've got this down. You buy this. You buy this. Because what was it then? Like when I first started playing, they didn't have the Bastion in the game. It was the TT
The
10,000,
Tactula?
that one,
Oh,
and it
yeah,
was
yeah,
just
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
rail that just went on the cover.
Yeah,
And I was like,
yeah.
you buy this bad boy, and then you buy this other thing, and then it was just it was so funny. I can't even remember what the issue was. There was a problem with like getting a scope on, or like my friend just couldn't make it work. Maybe it was because I think it might have been like I had the AKS, the AKMS, and he had the AKMS-N, and he had the AKMS or something, and I was just like, you just put it on, like it just works. He's like, no, it's not working because like the dovetail. Um, Obviously it wasn't on his weapon or something along those lines. But we spent like half an hour trying to figure out why his gun couldn't take a scope and mine could. Honestly, it was like the most ridiculous thing. We actually got really frustrated with it in the end. And I do, yeah. I wonder whether the thing is, like, thinking back, I do think like, oh, it's probably a bit easier now because you have the preset system and stuff. But like when you first start playing,
Yeah.
you don't have the flea market, you don't have the workbench, you
Right.
can't even look at the presets, you don't have all the items identified anyway, so they don't even appear in the preset system. So it
Yeah.
probably isn't actually any easier than it used to be. And like I remember just like trying to figure out how, like, once you learn the power of the linked search, that like completely changes the game. It completely changes the game for you, because then like, okay, so here's how I build the tree of attachments and how they all fit to this weapon. But before then, you're just like, I don't know how any of this stuff fits, and I can't make this connect to this. Like, because you pick up something, you like pick up a stock, and then you're like, right, I have a gun, I have a stock. How? And it's like, oh no, I need the like PT lock thing, and then all of that
Yeah.
rubbish,
Yeah, yeah,
which you
yeah.
just don't realize about at first. And so yeah,
But that's
it's great when you get it working.
yeah, but the process of doing that is just so, like, because you don't have as a new player, you don't have any knowledge. So once you learn that link search is your solution, I guess, you then have to link search everything
Hmm.
and then inspect everything.
Hmm.
And that's just taking so much chunk of time where you're not really learning the game inside the raid. You know, you're just what they could basically just have. Let's say you just had you already knew you didn't have to. There was no examining. You just knew everything,
Yeah.
right? That would just like save so much time. You know how much time I spent link searching everything because I wanted to make sure I was like getting the most value for everything. You know, I didn't want to
Yeah,
miss out on a certain attachment. Like,
100%. I had a friend who, when I first introduced him to the game, he got
mhm.
to level 10 and then spent the
Yeah,
next 2 hours identifying every item in the
yeah,
flea market.
yes, yes.
Open up every
Same with
tab,
my other friends.
open up every sub tab, and right down to the item level. And I did, to be fair, I did spare him, and I did tell him that middle click was identify. So I didn't force him to go through the
You
right click
spared him.
identify with everything, because there have been people who they were like, wow, this identifying thing takes a while. I'm just like, yeah, just use middle click, and they're like, oh my god, this is a game changer. I'm like, it also folds stocks, by the way, only if you've not got a butt pad on. Then it's like. Oh, it's crazy. It is crazy. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I wonder, like, if you were going to make it better. I mean, I do think, and this is kind of going to bridge to the next topic that I was going to talk about, which actually someone
Mhm,
alluded to in chat already, because this is why it's so high on the agenda, right? I think that if you're going to make the system difficult like that, you do need to work people into it. So the very things like the
mhm.
very first mechanic gunsmith quest, for example, should be at level
Yes,
1. It should give you the items that you need, and it should
yes,
just let you piece it together, right? Things like
yes.
that. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again now, because it's even more important in this topic than it is normally, which is that games with great design don't feel like work when you're learning them. So
Mm.
Portal is the classic example where you
Ooh,
don't ever have to go outside the game with Portal. You know what? If anybody is interested, and I can't remember where this is exactly, but there was a documentary about how they made Portal and the amount of
mhm,
testing that they did on various groups as they went through. And
mm,
the design, like the Portal is one of the best designed games of all time, simply because of how much thought they put into the learning experience of the player, because you don't know how to do any of this stuff to begin with. And if you give somebody a really hard puzzle, like Tarkov's kind of the equivalent of giving you like a puzzle from the middle of Portal right at the beginning of the game. You just don't know how to do it, and you're going to go and look it up on YouTube, because you just can't. You haven't been given enough sufficient training to
you
actually
don't have
to do
the
it. Yeah, you don't have the, yeah,
foundation from the
exactly. You don't have any of the
beginning,
foundations or the
right.
knowledge or any of that stuff, because Portal builds up very, very, very gently right
Yes,
from the beginning,
yeah,
and is expertly crafted to do so. There's a whole section that in that documentary about um, too many people were failing a particular puzzle,
mhm,
and they realized it was because they never actually trained anybody to look up in any of the tasks previous to it. So people just didn't
interesting.
do it and got stuck and just couldn't figure out where to go or like what to do. And I think you had to like put a portal on the roof or something.
Yeah,
And so they edited the one of the tasks beforehand where it was really obvious that that was what you had to do. So when people came to the next task, they were already ready. They were already trained, and they were already ready to think, oh, maybe I need to look up. And it like increased the success rate by like 80% or something. And they were like, okay, this is
interesting.
good. And so they kept
Yeah,
tweaking lots of things to give you this kind of pathway, right? It's like you need to slowly step, 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 and
yes,
that's what feels so
yes,
fun. And I think like another game that I played like that was Subnautica, which I mentioned before as well, which is quite, it's a quite challenging game, but it makes you like the game's designed in such a way that it makes you feel as if you're discovering this stuff, even though it's kind of just like clever game design. You know what I mean? But look,
yeah,
that all of that aside, I think some of that definitely that idea, the ideology could definitely be brought to the game. Things like the gunsmith quest should be in a particular order to kind of like help you understand the modding system and figure out how to proceed through it, and then to ultimately be able to make your own weapons
yeah,
easily, rather than right now, which is, it seems to me, pretty much just a random order. They've just gone like, here's a load of gunsmith quests, and just shuffle and just kind of whatever, because some of the hard ones are quite early on, um,
yeah,
especially things like the RSAS one, right, where you have to either
yep,
pay like an extortionate amount on the flea market to buy one. I mean, it's coming down now, or do the barter trade, which requires killing lots of PMCs. So as a new player, it's probably not really going to happen. or
Mhm.
you have to find one, right? And it's like it's quite early. I think it's like, is it Gunsmith 6 or something?
I think it's 6 or 5, one of
Can't
those 2,
remember.
yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I think I said before on this as well that I refused to do it and just waited and then did them all. But I will, I'm not ashamed to admit that this wipe is the first wipe where I didn't look up on any, well, except for one stupid thing, on the wiki for any of the gunsmith quests. And this is like my fourth wipe or something. Like it takes a serious amount of experience in the game to be able to complete these quests without looking it up. Like it's not easy, and that to be fair, that's with the preset system as well. So beforehand it was even harder, right? Things where it says it has to be under a certain weight, like there's not really any other way to do it other than just like looking through all the different attachments, right? Because everything's so contingent on everything else,
Mm,
like recoil under
yeah.
this and ergonomics under this, ergonomics over this, and then weight under this, but it also needs to have this, this, and this. And it's like, well, I can't just like that's not. I just need to be able to try, which is why the presets is quite good for that. And I do think that was a huge step in the right direction. But yeah, I mean, like, the point of what I was trying to say in general is that the quest design really needs. I know it's a placeholder. They've said it's a placeholder, it's a placeholder, it's a placeholder, but they keep tweaking them and adding new things. And I don't know. I really do think they need to redesign some of these quests and maybe just change the order of them or something. Like Gunsmith definitely could do with that because it's so clear with Gunsmith.
I feel like that'd be the easiest one to start with.
Yeah, exactly. And you could even put more parts in, or some parts that just don't really give you that much XP. Like maybe just have five right at the beginning that just come one after another that give you 500 experience each, but they give you a weapon at the end to use. Something like that. It doesn't have to be a
Mhm.
complicated weapon, but just something to kind of ease people in and teach the player. I think it would be
Yeah,
valuable. I think it'd be really valuable.
yeah. I mean, something as simple as, like, gas block, because I think, you know, that's sort of like a nuanced thing, is that, A, the gun requires a gas block, and B, the gun also requires a handguard to cover that gas block in most circumstances.
Yeah.
Um, Something like that would just be like, "Hey, I'm gonna teach you how to build guns. I'm a mechanic, by the way." And then it's just like just something simple, and then like you were saying, just progressively get more and more difficult, more and more complex. Maybe less and less possible combinations to build this gun as you progress through the quest line of gunsmith. To me, that just seems, I don't know. It just seems they don't they don't have to spoon feed you information, but just give you enough room to learn how to use the system, so that way you can learn as a player and it's more enjoyable for you. Not you have to alt tab and read a wiki and then just copy paste
Yeah.
basically. Like it's such a poor experience.
Exactly right. And then yes, it would take a bit of time. Yes, they would need to have like new player control groups to test it in the same way that other game designers do. But
ETS.
it would, it would stop people from going elsewhere to find the information, which is what they've said they want.
Yes.
So I think it's in their best interest, honestly.
Yeah.
I think it's in their
That's
best
fair.
interest. I mean, yeah, look, I'm not a real life guns person. I fired a weapon once.
Hmm.
Well, actually, a couple of times. But I mean, in the UK, it's very, very locked down. Like, we're not a gun culture at
Hmm.
all. And I don't know how an AR-15 gets put together, or I didn't before I played this game anyway. Um, and it was very, very confusing for me. It was very confusing. Actually, to be fair, I
Yeah.
guess I didn't start modding M4s and stuff until a lot later on. But yeah, even as you said before, the you have to the gas block. And I think the thing that used to confuse me so much, like, and it seems stupid now, but like you'd have the gas block so you double click on the weapon, it opens up in that kind of like minimized sort of profile view, and you've got
Yeah.
the gas block, but the gas block is invisible because it has the handguard already on it. And
Right.
then there's another
Right.
box which has got the handguard in it, and if you move the handguard off in the handguard box, it just moves the handguard off and leaves the gas block. If you move the gas block in the gas
Right.
bit, it removes it completely, including the handguard. All right, and there was just some like
Yes.
really basic, stupid things like that I found extremely
And
confusing at first.
that can trip you up for sure. Absolutely, for a new player.
Yeah.
Because maybe you go to like put the handguard on, you take the old handguard off, but you end up taking off the gas
Hmm.
block. but you can still put the new handguard on. It just doesn't have a gas block, and your gun's red. You're like, why is this gun red? I don't
Yeah,
understand.
and
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
you double click on it, right, in that preview view, it doesn't tell you.
Mhm.
It just has the gas block missing, right? It should be in red. It should be like gas block is missing. It's in red. It's missing.
Warning, warning,
Yeah,
warning.
you
Yeah,
can't fire a weapon without it. I mean, I guess they kind of want you
yeah,
to learn yourself, but it's just like God.
yeah.
It's just so difficult. And then yeah, I mean, so this is there was a comment in chat which I think like segues
Mhm.
perfectly into my next point, which is like they said some of the quests give you so little info to work with that I would find it quite impossible to figure out without looking up some sort of info. That's Antu RTV who said that, which is pretty much the point I was going to make. In that, again, if you don't want people to go off to the wiki, don't make the quests like random rambling from the trader being like, oh yeah, so there was this dude and he lived in the bunk houses on customs. I don't remember the number, but you there's something in there that's important. There's one in particular which I've always hated, and I think a lot of people hate it, and it's the one I can't remember which one it's called. It's the one on customs. We have to go to the train car, and you practically have to
Yes.
lie
Oh
down.
my god.
Now you remember these games from like they've fallen out of fashion a lot, but I guess because it was the technology's there, we don't need to play them anymore. The point and click type adventures where you have to kind of like
Mhm.
you mouse over the whole screen, and then it's like oh, there's like this one little pixel, and it's like oh okay, there's the thing that I need. It's
Yeah.
like that. Like what is the need for that? Because the quests are yeah kind of obtuse and confusing anyway. And then when they make the item like so ridiculously, like how did anybody ever find that? Like you'd go there and be like, oh well, I must be wrong because it's it's just literally not here. Like there's no way of knowing that it's going to be like down the side of one of the other object models. It's just ridiculous. Like I just think it's crazy. Like what?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the only thing that came to my head, I don't even know if it's a good solution, but they could have like in-game lore or quest related lore notes at like okay, let's say that quest, whoever told you to go to dorms and look in a room. You look in the room and you find a note. He's like, I think I last saw this guy at the train cart and he left the thing. There's a note near the train cart. So you go to train cart, you find a note. Oh, yeah, I left the thing in between the little crack in the crevice in the
Yeah,
boxes. Like, that's the only thing I could see them doing.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if that's even a good
I don't know. I think it would be
approach.
better. I think it would be better. I mean, I'm all for people finding out what to do on their own, but I just don't see what the alternative is half the time other than going to the wiki. I still yes,
Yeah.
I did all the gunsmiths this time on my own. I still go back and look on the wiki for half the quests because I forget where the item is, or it's some annoying location that
Yeah.
like which room was this, or like oh where did I need to get this key for going into this particular place? Like even basic ones, right? It's like um going to get the bronze pocket watch. I can never remember which room has the machinery key in it in dorms to go and get it from that specific jacket so you
Hmm.
can actually unlock the truck because you don't have the fleet then, so you have to go and get it another way. And I had
Right.
to go and get it myself, and I was like, I'm damned if I can remember which room that is. And it's just like it's stuff like that, and it's so hard to work out from the quest dialogue. It needs to either have like a few parts, like you said, or like they don't need to make it easy, but there's no point making it impossible because, again, if you don't give people the tools to actually find out this stuff, they're going to go elsewhere, and that's not what they want. They've said that's not what they want. So you got to help
I
people.
mean, even some of them is like, I want to say setup, the one where you have to kill PMCs with a shotgun and
Hmm.
you have to wear Ushanka Scavis. I want to say it says spec gear and it only specifies a Ushanka. It doesn't specify a Scavis. I might be wrong. They might have changed it, but
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean,
there is some
uh,
like
yeah,
important details missing in the yeah.
there are some important details missing. That's the one I actually posted on Twitter, even because I was so frustrated because I was so
Oh, really?
determined that I was going to be doing all of the gunsmith quests on my own. And then there's one of them where you do everything that it says, but it also needs a mag. It doesn't say in the
Yeah,
quest,
this
and it
is
also needs a
annoying.
magazine. And I was like, I looked all over the place, and it's one of the ones that's actually kind of confusing because there's two AFG grips that you could potentially use. And
Hmm.
there's like something to do with the stock as well. I can't remember. And I was looking up like people going, "Oh, it's not working," blah 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 blah. And so people saying like, "Oh no, it's because you need to use this, need to use that." And I was like, "I've done all this though. I've done it right. I'm sure I've done it right."
Yeah.
And so eventually I was like, okay, I can't get this to work. I'm doing something stupid, obviously. And so yeah, I went on the wiki, and then it says in the note on the wiki, and that's what I posted on Twitter. I was just like, are you actually serious? It says, despite not saying in the requirements, you do need a magazine for the AK before you'll take it. And I was like, there's no excuse for that now. Like, all that is changing is a piece of text in a box. That surely takes 2
I
seconds.
don't know. Yeah.
Maybe
It's
reported it
I
to
don't
them.
know.
Maybe it's just down on the priority list because
That's
you know what? And
yeah.
this is actually not just BSG. This is a general development thing around the prioritization of large and important things that are critical versus really easy fixes, but they're small and quality of life. And it's actually a difficult balance. It is a difficult balance. But I do think that often, especially when you start to like systematize coding, it's not something that I do, but I've like kind of been involved in like general organization of projects of that kind of thing. And
Mhm.
there is a tendency, especially when it's like, right, now that this stuff's kind of getting scaled up, when things are getting scaled up, it's like we've got a list and we've got a priority list and blah blah blah. And the really critical big projects all sit at the top of the priority list, which is fine. But what it often ends up meaning is that all of the tiny little things, like, could you change this piece of text in this box, please? They go, well, it's got to be prioritized because it's a piece of tech work. And then it goes to the committee of people and they go, well, it's clearly not that important. And I'm like, yes, it's not that important. But right, it's not going to take you 2 months like these other items. It's going to take you like 30 seconds to find that. But Control F to find that where the other text is and just add it on the end. Like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes that time prioritization section gets missed off, where it's like it's easy to fix, and so that it should have some kind of weighting, or maybe there's a time allocation that that you guys should say, fine, what 5% of the time we're going to spend on things that are like super quick fixes. We'll fix this and fix this and fix this. And to be fair, they are doing that in some sense, but yeah, little things like that like really niggle me. It's just like it seems so easy. Maybe it's just because I'm not a coder, but I
I
don't
feel
I
like
don't get it.
maybe that gets thrown under the polish phase, like the
Maybe
very late stage. That's something I would just think. Well,
maybe, but again, you get to that quest,
yeah, no, it's important for
everyone's going to end
sure.
up on the wiki.
Yeah.
Everyone, because there's literally no way of completing it if you follow it to the letter. It's not possible. It's not possible to complete that quest without going out for external help, unless you randomly have the mag attached, right? So if you buy one with the mag on it, it's fine, and you don't realize, and you don't know because you just try to hand it in and it works. But if you don't, like I didn't this time, because I was like, I never thought I had this problem before, and I think it's because there was always a magazine on it, and this time it didn't work. So annoying.
Yeah.
Very, very annoying. But yeah, I mean, look, quest design in general, maybe it'll be completely different once they bring out the main quest line and all this stuff, and they said it's
Mhm.
placeholder,
Mhm.
like we said before, and like there's not too
Mhm.
much point talking about what it's going to look like in the future because we just have no idea. But I think whatever they do, they should think about those design elements in terms of
Yeah.
slowly ratcheting people into the game, and it would
And
retain more new players, I think.
and to be fair, they are a smaller studio, and this is like
Mhm.
what their second game, I want to say.
Yeah, I think someone said
So
third somewhere, but I don't know what the first one is because they did Contract Wars and then this. But
contrast,
I don't know
yeah,
if there was another one.
there might have been a unless this was Contract Wars, but they might have done like a COD clone web based game, and specifically in the Eastern market.
I
I'm
don't
not too
remember.
sure about
The
that.
only one that I really know about is Contract Wars, and I don't really know much about
Hmm.
that either. To be fair, I know
Hmm.
there's like some links back to it, but I never actually played it. It would actually be quite interesting to go and play. I think you still can. I think it's still open.
Huh.
Maybe do that at some point. That could be quite fun actually.
Yeah, the Woods expansion. That's like new UN area. I don't
Mm,
know if you're very familiar. There's like
yeah,
this Radio Shack tower thing that's like directly taken from Contract Wars, and someone on Twitter did like a side by side. And I was like, "Oh, that's so cool for, like, the people that play Contract Wars." Like, it's a bit of a nostalgia for them. I thought that was pretty cool.
I did see that on Reddit actually. Somebody saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, look, they put this. They're my favorite spot into the game," which is nice. That is nice. Well, I mean, they're the same. They're the same universe, aren't they? So
Mhm.
they're the same timeline. They're part of the same kind of universe from a lore perspective. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with it. Right. So what else? What's next? So what's next on your list about the new player stuff? I've got other things, but if you've got anything specific that you want to bring up first, then be my guest.
Yeah, so here are some things. I took down some notes on some things that stood out to me, specifically this swipe, like I said, when I was playing with some new players, but some other things outside of that. So some things that like I coined noob traps. Um, like found in race status was like
Ah,
one that was confusing because they were like, why can't I sell this gun that I got? Like I got this in the raid from the PMC I killed. I was like, doesn't have the check mark. He was like, wait, it needs a check mark? Oh my god, bro.
yeah.
Shout out to James. Um, yeah, it's just like he found it in the raid. Technically, he should be able to sell in the flea market, but because that's just like a system they put in, it's kind of I don't know.
Yeah, I remember when they were first talking about it, and I don't really have anything too bad to say about the find and raid system. I think overall it was good for the game, even though
Mhm.
I've always said this. I think it was good for the game. The effects that it's had on the game are good, but I don't really like the implementation. And this always comes back to like the unintuitiveness of it, where and I can't remember who said this first, but they said you can kill a PMC and take their gun from a raid and not be able to sell it because it's not finding raid, but you can
Mhm.
buy a load of stuff off the flea market and craft something in the hideout, never enter the raid, and that is finding
And
raid.
it's found in raid.
And it's like
Yeah.
the
That's
complete, like
great.
it's super weird, right? And it's
Yeah.
I don't like maybe they just rename it, maybe just stop calling it
Maybe they just
finding raid or
rename it.
something. I'm sure there's a better way that you could phrase it, but that's like one of the strangest, like unintuitive concepts. And it's funny because I don't think I've played with anybody who's like brand new since Finding Raid came in, but played for long enough. I tend to just play with people who just want to like dabble a little bit. So no one ever really get like the people I've played with don't really get to level 10, and so they never really experience it. So I'm yet to see kind
Mm.
of like how people find it, which is interesting hearing what you're saying about it because that's well, it's the clear outcome that you might imagine, right? If someone goes,
Yeah.
I think that's the classic thing of I kill a PMC, I take their stuff, I go to try and sell it, and I can't. That's the normal one that people run into and go, well, I found it in the raid, so what gives?
But even like, "Oh, I need this for my quest. This is super important. Let me put it in my container." Like, well
You're out of luck.
well, you have to survive technically because 'cause
Yeah,
you'll lose a found race status, so
yeah.
it's like,
But I don't
I don't
think the
know.
game says anything about that either
No, that's just
anywhere.
like one of their sub mechanics of the
Y-
system.
yeah, where it's like you try to sell it on the flea and you click on it and it goes, not found in raid. And
Yeah.
you go, huh, okay. And it's one of those things that like playing the game before that was put in place and then knowing that it was coming and then playing with it after, it makes a lot of sense. But for somebody who's just like picking up the game for the first time, the game literally doesn't mention it anywhere. Not
Yeah.
even right. Okay, so this is like even more fundamental. Somebody who's playing the game for the first time, it doesn't even tell you that in the items in the secure container are not going to be lost.
Hmm. I didn't even think about that.
And some people, I've seen people go in with no secure container because they've heard that they're going to lose everything, and they keep their alpha in their stash,
Oh,
which is
wow, that's
it was
crazy.
completely sensible, right? You can see why somebody would do
Yeah.
that, but it's like, no, dude, no, that's not that's not how it works. And that's the
Yeah.
thing, right? There's, in my opinion, there's absolutely nothing wrong with telling people that that's that game mechanic because that is purely a game mechanic. There's nothing realistic
Right.
about that. Yeah, someone in chat saying my friend did that the first time. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing realistic about that in any way. That's a pure game mechanic. This concept only exists within the walls of Escape from Tarkov. You just got
100%.
to
Yeah.
tell people what is wrong with just being able to tell people. Like you you can tell people that kind of thing. It's okay. It won't detract from the experience, you know?
You know, what'd be cool is if when you load into your stash, you see this, you look at your character and you see this like question mark box at the bottom and you inspect it. And then a little pop up dialog comes up. This is your securing container. Items you put in here will
See?
not.
See? 5 seconds. We solved it. There you go. That's it.
No.
That's how you do it. That's how you do it. So
God,
like
I'm so smart.
so yeah, so basically it's like that. It's just funny, right? It's about the assumptions that we make as we're experienced players. We're
Yeah.
talking about finding raid and blah blah blah. And it's just like even the basics like secure containers are quite confusing. Like I mean, this is a very, very slight tangent, but I also remember being so constricted on stash as a standard account player. And I played, like, to be
Mm,
fair, like I played 2 full wipes as a standard account player and only bought EOD on wipe 3. And so, I've been there and I've done it. And that was kind of wipe through. I was like, I've suffered enough. I deserve this
yeah.
now. But back then, hoarding all sorts of random crap that wasn't very useful, scav vests and all sorts, because you just don't know what's valuable, what's not, and you don't have anything valuable in your stash anyway when you're first starting. And like figuring out some of the small stuff, like, oh my goodness, the rig actually has more space on the inside than the outside, and oh, if I take the pistol grip off the gun, oh, it gets smaller, and I can hoard even more weapons like this that I'm not going to use. All that kind of stuff. And those are some, like, wonderful things, and that kind of thing can stay in the game being undiscovered until you kind of figure it out, because it's not like critical to progression. It's like something that you work out yourself, like a little puzzle, and that is okay to be silent on, I think.
It's kind of the only problem I have with it is that you end up as a standard account player spending more time in your stash hoarding stuff and trying to make everything fit. Like, I can remember when I was first playing, like I would go on a scav run and like specifically before I go on that scav run, I make sure I load my PMC up with all the backpacks you can carry, like
Yep.
make sure all the cells are open,
Yep.
go in a raid, scav in. Now I got to fit everything. Now I'm like taking bags off my scav, putting bags on my scav to put stuff in there. Like you spend so much time doing that. I mean, I don't, it is what it is because obviously EOD is more expensive and you get the benefits of that. It is
Yeah.
what it is.
And
So
it's part of the game. But like, I don't like. I think the moment when you reach peak Tarkov, and this was kind of like, I've ended up in this situation a few times, and now I never let it happen now, because it is crushing when it does. When your stash is full
mhm.
and you go, oh, I'm just going to go on this quick scav run, and then you have an insane raid, it's crazy good, and you leave and there's just nowhere to put anything, and you're like, I have made a terrible mistake.
Yeah,
And
that sucks.
you end up spending like 30 minutes like optimizing every last square to try. I mean, I do anyway, maybe that's just me, but like to try and like fit this stuff in, because I just do not want to just discard those items and have them be destroyed. I think that's like the peak new player experience, is not realizing just how much space some of this stuff takes, and then try to like, I just imagine my PMC is like, this kind of like a shipping container or whatever, and you're just like, God, like, trying to get all this stuff in. It's like, go on, just one more. We could put one more Ushanka in there, one more brown handled knife, so I can upgrade to my MP5. Just get another one in,
Yep.
slide it to the sides. Oh God, oh, it's good.
Kinda
It's good times.
piggybacking off the, Con and Raid stuff. There's this mechanic that's still in the game that does not belong in my opinion because
Mhm.
it doesn't even do what it's intended to do,
Okay.
but it's cursed and tagged. So I was watching one of my friends stream, the new player, do stir up on Factory,
Mhm.
and they were getting charged by scavs, and they were freaking out because they were thinking it's a PMC, like they're fighting a player, and it basically caused them to panic for a scav, which around this time they were like intermediate, you know what I mean? They
Yeah.
weren't really in beginner. But they were freaking out because the scavs charging them and they're like, bro, why am I getting charged? I'm like, so I'm like telling them like, yeah, there's this mechanic called Christian Tag. Basically, if you don't have enough gear, you're marked and they'll rush you. It's like, oh, why isn't it in the game? I was like, yeah, well, you see, there's this thing called hatchet runners back in the day. But even now, and this is sort of a tangent, but you can literally just interchange hatchet run past all the scavs. They don't like charge you down. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's like at the start of the raid, you're marked. And because factory the spawns, like, you're spawning next to scavs, basically,
Yeah.
and so they just rush you, whereas, like, on a bigger map, there's no scavs around you to actually charge you. So by the time you get into the building, they're not even charging you anymore, they're just regular patrol mode. Um, anyways, I that that whole system to me is just dumb just because it doesn't do what it only punishes new players, in my opinion. Because think about it, if you're a new player and you're dying a lot, you're naturally gonna wanna bring in you're naturally gonna risk less gear,
Yeah.
which could put you in a scenario where you're cursed and tag. And if you're playing a map like Factory, you're just gonna get it's just I can just see it just being such a bad experience for a new player.
Yeah, 100%. And I actually couldn't when you were talking about it then, I couldn't remember whether it is actually still in the game or not, and that I guess it's just something that I never really experienced. But I guess I just never go in with just a pistol. But I haven't heard anybody talking about it properly for ages. So I did I'd kind of forgotten that it was even in the game. If I'm being perfectly honest, um, because I haven't really seen anyone complaining about it. But look, if it is actually still there, then yeah, it's people are going to run into it, especially when they've got the gear fear and they're want to do low gear runs. It's
Here's the kicker too, if you die, you
oh
get
yeah,
punished.
yeah.
You have
You
to
end up
pay
with
the full
one
of
health on every limb, right?
yes.
Yeah,
That's the kicker,
yeah,
and it's so the system is so weird because I don't know what it is, but if you have, like, a rig, I wanna say, and a pistol and maybe, like, a vest, you're fine, but if you don't have, like, a vest, but you have a rig and a pistol, there's, like, some weird
yeah.
combinations where you can get past it, but, like, to me, it just it yeah.
Well, yeah. The whole point was to try and stop hatchlings from just like running in. But this is the thing, as you said, right? It's a hangover from an older time in the game when the
Yeah,
find and raid system wasn't in place, because
right.
now you have to leave as well in order to actually sell your items. So if you manage to like run into resort, grab a lead axe, shove it up your butt, and then run to the extract and survive, then I guess you also need to be. It also can't be a run through. That's the kicker. So like, there's quite a few mechanics in the game now to
Let's
kind of
see.
prevent it.
Sorry to cut you off, but it's sort of changed a bit now. It's all about the Tetrises and GPUs because
What on
you
the loot runs? You
you
mean?
can yeah, because you can still hatchet run technically. You can go on whatever map you want,
Oh, but you then
but if you
barter
get a
them.
Tetris, you barter. If you get a GPU, you put in your farm. You see what I mean?
I
It's
see. I
sort
see. I
of
see. I see. That makes sense.
it
That
hasn't
does make
totally fixed
sense.
the problem because there's a lot of hatchet runners and interchanges. Usually one a game, or they'll have like a pistol, but they're
Yeah.
pretty much naked.
See, again, like interchange is probably my least played map by like a long way.
Yeah,
Or as PMC anyway. Like I do actually do quite well. I have done quite a lot of interchange scav. I do much more at the beginning of the wipe. I kind of stopped playing once I have like the hideout to a certain level and I'm not, completely broke all the time buying GPUs, which is how I pretty much spend the first kind of month. And then after that, it's like I pretty much just do scav on factory because money's not really a problem anymore. Um, so that's interesting. That's interesting because it's not something that I normally experience there, but that makes complete sense, because if you can
and
barter for stuff, then yeah, then it doesn't matter.
it's not low level players either. These guys are like level 40, level 50 sometimes. Like they're high level.
I've never understood
And
that.
because they're just doing it economically. Just think about it, Giga. Why would you do like if you just wanted to like fill up your farm as fast as possible, and let's say you're just like an average player, you can basically risk nothing. The only thing you pay is the therapist fee, and you would just go in and out that fast because you takes you like 2 minutes to get to the store. If you want, you can invest in the SJ6 every raid. You run to the first tech store you come across. Let's say you Rasmussen or Texco or
Hmm.
TechLight, um, German, TTS. Like there's a bunch of graphics card spawns. You get a graphics card in your butt, boom. You can nade yourself, die. It doesn't matter. You don't care about the fee because the Bitcoin over time is just gonna like surpass that
I
enormously. You know what I
guess.
mean? So
Yeah, I guess so. Got to put myself in the mind of the hatchet run. It's like it's something that like it's so like counter to like every part of my being. It's not that I even
mhm,
really care about hatchet runners, right? They can hatchet run if they want. I just like it's
mhm.
so not my my style in any sense. It's so I just find it
Yeah.
so alien. It's difficult for me to put myself in there because I don't really like looting that much anyway. I think that anybody who's kind of familiar with my stuff on my stream knows that I'm like a prolific non-looter, and I have chats screaming at me half the time, just like, "You've missed this, and there's a cash here," and like, "Oh my god, what are you doing?" And I'm just like, it's fine. And I think because like I kind of get my economics from the hideout and other places.
Mhm.
But I mean, that totally makes sense what you're saying. I guess you probably, I don't know, like, look, there's a ton of other people running into interchange though. I mean, do you like just not bump into them or what? Like these people must die a lot when they're running in, and then
Oh,
you meet
they
someone and you
die.
die, or you
Like,
meet
just
another
the other
pistol in and
day,
then you die.
we were in Texco. I guess we had a better spawn, and then this hatchet runner comes up from the escalators near the furniture store. I don't know if you know these callouts or not, but it's, like, right next to Ollie.
Yeah.
Anyways, and we just hear this guy running, and it's like, "Player, player," and so I'm looking, and I see he's a hatchet runner. I shoot him, but I miss him, and he's already going up the steps. Because I mean, I'm hearing the guy running. I'm thinking, "Oh, man, we got a Giga Chad coming in," you know?
Yeah, yeah. You
This
don't
guy's
know,
just
right? You
sprinting.
don't know.
Yeah, and then you see it's a hatchet runner, so then I'm like, "Man, if I have an option, do I chase him up the stairs to kill him so that way he can't get the card in his butt, or do I let him go?" So, of course, I chase him. But then I died to a different player all the way down the second
Oh,
floor
yeah.
shooting
Okay.
at us. It
Yeah.
was just like, what a shit show, but
Yeah.
it's definitely not for everyone, but I think for certain people, to them, it makes sense because it's like, I can guarantee
Mm,
my future income if
yeah.
I just grind this hatchet running for a little bit.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, I think other people just have a much greater tolerance of sitting on the loading screen than
Yeah.
I do. Like if you had something else to do in the loading screen, then
Mhm.
maybe it would be a bit better. But for me, I hate just sitting there, just like twiddling my thumbs on the loading screen, just like God. Like I would at least like to make something of the raid when I go in to do
Yeah.
it. But anyway, I don't know. It's a nuts one. It's a nuts one. What were we talking about? Then we kind of managed to derail that. What was
Yeah,
that topic on originally?
to sort of bring it back home, that system does not punish
Ah,
what
yes,
it's intended to punish. It
indeed,
only in my
indeed.
opinion, it only punishes new players. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I
So,
think so. I think so. And yeah, as we said, there's kind of like there are mechanics to get rid of it, not completely, as you rightly put. I hadn't actually thought about that, so it's an interesting one.
mhm.
But I don't see as many hatchet runners as I used to. Nowhere near as many, and especially on the maps that I play. So I don't, as I
Yeah.
said, I don't play much interchange really, except to scav later, and they're all gone by then. But I don't really see many on even shoreline, to be honest. Like I don't really see that many on shoreline. Maybe they're in and out so fast you never get to see them because I'm actually wearing something gear wise. But I don't know. Yeah, it's I don't know. Like if you could somehow, if they could bring it in so that there's a sensible reason as to why that might happen. I just don't like. I don't like things happening unannounced. I don't like things happening unannounced. I think that's actually kind of like a useful way to move into something that I was going to quickly cover about.
Mhm.
I think there's a few elements like this, but one of them is about ammo. Right, ammo is like so important,
Yeah.
and all the information is completely hidden.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same, right? It's like what makes these games good is the amount of choice and being able to choose between this is cheaper but less effective, this is more expensive but more effective, and all the varieties in between, the whole rainbow of different things that you could potentially pick from. Armor's a little better because you do at least have durability. There is the whole materials thing, which is kind of annoying,
Sure, sure.
but it's workable, right? You have a durability number, you have a level for the actual armor kind of protection class. So that kind of helps. But the ammo, it's just like there's no damage figures, there's no penetration numbers, there's like you just have no clue. And I don't think it helps. I don't think it helps for a new player because you can't you should be able to give people a little bit of something. Basically just saying to people, just guess, I don't think is interesting. From a player's perspective, it's not an interesting thing to just have to guess what to do or what ammo to buy.
Especially that you have to guess in a online scenario where you're risking the gear you're guessing or
Yeah.
the item you're guessing.
Yeah. And you're like, well, I want to be able to make the choice as to whether I bring in expensive ammo or cheap ammo. but I have absolutely no idea whether it's worth it, and I don't have the tools to be able to tell unless I, again, go outside of the game, go to the wiki, look at
Mhm.
No Food After Midnight's ammo chart, look at it against the other armors. Like, there's no way, right? Unless you're some kind
Yeah.
of ballistics expert in real life, or just an enthusiastic amateur. There's no way that you could ever know any of this stuff. And again, like as people have pointed out previously, there are other gaming mechanics within Tarkov, like helmets are kind of overpowered compared to their real life, you know, um, counterparts. And so even if you knew about armor and weapons and whatever in real life, it doesn't necessarily cross over either, because we don't have a plate system. The EFT is weird, right? It's like the meta is around like just extreme penetration, because almost every single player is wearing class 4 and above. Like class 4 is like a pretty serious piece of armor, right? But everybody's wearing it and it covers the entire body part. And so high pen meta is just like the thing and always will be the thing until they change it over to something a bit more varied, like the plate system where you can potentially shoot through them with hollow points or something.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that's like it's another example of the new player experience being tricky because zero information is given and it is driving you to an outside source, which makes it quite tough. I think another one of this type as well, which is kind of like the new wipe I know what I'm doing booster, is the hidden caches. Like people who've played know where they are. Like when the hidden caches weren't there,
Mm.
like customs was just a complete wasteland, right? There's nothing
Yeah.
there. There's like a safe in dorms, and that's basically like the entire loot of the whole map. Whereas now with the caches, it's like there is actually quite a lot of loot all over the place, which is fine. But as a new player, you don't even know where they are. I remember
Yeah.
when I first started playing. I don't know about you, but like coming from something like PUBG, where pretty much every house will have like a loot spawn in it, and there's like maybe a vest or whatever, and it's like non-realistic and arcadey. But you go to Tarkov, and you're looking around, and you're just like, man, there is nothing on this map, and like this is playing original customs without caches, right, when I first started, and it was pretty bad for loot. But you don't know any better, and you just play customs because it's where they tell you all the quests are, and you're like, I'm not, the only thing I'm getting is maybe some scav guns or something, but that's it. And like, how are people, getting all of these things and getting, expensive items and gear or whatever, because I'm just not finding anything. I'm going inside all these trailers and all, in these storage warehouses and all sorts, and there's just nothing anywhere. There's like maybe a coat and it's got like a key in it that's worth 4,000 rubles. I found that quite tricky at the beginning. But with the hidden caches, it's kind of like it's a I know what I'm doing, like quick start mechanic almost, which as a new player you just don't know unless you went on because some of them are so ridiculously hidden as well. And again, it comes back to that kind of like asymmetry between, they say they don't want anybody to look on the stuff online, and yet they make it extremely profitable to go and do these caches, but so the community's just going to pull together their knowledge to figure out where they all are, right? And I'm sure the caches weren't intended to just be like run like bam, next one, next one, next one, next one, next one. Like I'm sure that probably wasn't their intention, but it's ended up creating entire loot runs just based around the caches. Hell, I created a video on it, right? It's
Mhm.
they're so worthwhile, especially if you're like a new player and there's not quite as much hype about them anymore. Once people have kind of got stuff set up, like I don't do those runs anymore, so there's like a little bit less pressure. If I'm in a raid, I'm much less likely now to be running those caches than I was previously. And so if there's a new player in the raid with me and they hit the caches, I'm not going to be going for it. And I'm sure there's other players who are also further along who don't really bother hitting them too. And so it's good for new people, but yeah, it's another strange one. It's the same theme over and over again about we don't want people to know what's going on, but we make it so difficult to actually figure out that you have to.
I was just thinking, they could have like a Jaeger quest early on that's like, "Hey, I'm Jaeger. I'm kind of a weirdo. I like to hide stuff and make you do ridiculous quests, but also I want you to find 5 caches." And then he gives you a photo or a group of photos, and they have screenshots in game of a couple different caches on a couple different maps.
Mhm.
And so then you can start piecing together. You know what I mean? Like you go here when you walk in the proximity, you get like a quest pop up, cache found. You're like, oh, I found a cache, and you loot it. I mean, something they need to start implementing breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
You know, for
Even, you know what? Even something like you get to look at your in-game maps, and if you found a cache, it's marked on there again.
Mhm.
Something like that. Like
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be
I would
cool.
not be opposed to that. It's like you go to find a cache, and then once you found it, it's like then it's marked on the map, so you can kind of remember. And obviously, it's like there's no GPS on it, there's no dot on the map or anything, but it kind of like reminds you sort of where it was, because, or maybe you have to like mark it yourself. I don't know, but something along those lines that I think would be
Yeah.
quite interesting, and kind of add a bit of an element of like I'm going to go and find out where these things are, rather than I'm just going to have to look on the wiki, because who has time to be scouring the ground in all of these different places with no real idea of where they might be to start with. There's no clues or anything, so it's just like you just got to slowly figure them out organically, or look them up and string them together and start running them as scav or even PMC. It's difficult. What's the chat saying? It give you a key, and the key can only be used to certain caches. Yeah, there's a lot of ways that it could be done. There's definitely a lot of ways that could be done. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like my theme's kind of very similar for a lot of my suggestions.
I got another thing I want to throw your way. Insurance. So some of my friends were not insuring their gear, like their headsets,
Okay.
and aren't, which I don't know your opinion on it, but I was trying to tell them like, okay, in my opinion, you should always insure, but that may differ if you're a solo player, and especially if you're new. But I was trying to tell them like, hey, insure your contacts so that way, if you kill a player, you can drop your contacts and take their
Yeah.
contacts. You know, a bit of insurance fraud.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, I almost think that as a new player, it's like a bit of a catch-22 because you say you insure your gear and you die.
Yeah.
If it's a good player or a veteran player that killed you, they're probably not going to loot you. But if it's a new player that killed you, they're going to loot you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Presumably.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, if you bring, let's say you found some really good gear and you insured it, well, then it's most likely definitely going to be looted if you die to like a player. So it's almost like, and because I feel that insurance heavily favors squad plays. What I'm trying to get at,
It definitely
because
does.
if you die and your teammates survive the fight, they can ditch your gear and you know you're good to go. Um, I almost think that what they should do is have a insurance cost should scale by level. So when you're level 1, it's extremely, extremely, extremely cheap, very affordable. And then level 2, it's, you know, it's still cheap. And then it just, if you're level 60, oh man, that insurance is real pricey. You know what I mean? Because you're a veteran player, you're level 60. Like I don't care how long you've been playing shooters. If you're level 60 in Tarkov, you gotta be at least somewhat decent at the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't think you necessarily need to make it like punishing at the top level, because it means just people won't use it. So you still have to allow it to be usable, and like, yeah, it should be, maybe it's like how it is now, at the
Mhm.
top level, because it is actually more expensive than it was before. But yeah, I do agree. I mean, they've done something similar, right, with the health system, where under levels 1 to 5 you get to heal for free at the end of each raid, because that was
Yeah, which I
miserable.
liked.
I
I thought
like
that
it
was
too.
really
I
good.
like it too, and I that was a misery for a lot of people, right? Like, people
Yeah.
were like playing scav, and then like, oh man, my PMC's only like a quarter healed up, but I don't have any money, or I don't want to spend all my money on cheese. I've already done that, and I'm just going to go play something else for a few hours, because I don't want to just like spend all my money on food and drink and healing up, and then I'm just getting killed all the time. So I think that's actually a brilliant move for them. So that was kind of similar, right? It would be like under level 10, maybe your insurance cost is much cheaper. That would be a nice touch.
Another thing, you remember when they did when you got, like, free gear?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
I don't know what that system
Well, I
involves.
don't know
Was
whether
that
that's
like a
still
weekly
here anymore.
thing?
I'm not sure, because now it's like the first 5 days. I think you get gear every day, it seems, and that was from this
Okay.
wipe only, I believe.
Yeah, see, I wonder if they should change it to, like, it's a actual built-in thing to the game, like 1 through 10 or whatever you just get.
Hmm.
Because I thought that was a great thing because now it's like, "Here's some gear, go use it
Yeah,
in a raid." Because I don't think a new player is gonna sell that gear because they tend to hold
hoard
on to a lot
everything.
of things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. No, I
I
think
thought
it's
that was
good.
a good.
I think it's great. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. Yeah, I do. I like that one. I like that one a lot. And then even kind of like, maybe if your total overall net worth goes down below a certain amount, then maybe you get just like start getting a few little bits from prepper or something. Because like, yeah, it's not fun when you're down in that like catch-22 of like can't really play because you don't have any gear. Every time you go in, you die because your gear sucks, which makes you want to take even less. And then you get tagged and cursed in factory. No, it's it's brutal, right? It's rough when you're down in that spot because you just don't know how to make money. Like that's the thing about Tarkov is just like figuring out how to make money. And before then, it's very rough, and you can end up in a downward spiral. And that's kind of what causes some people to leave. Right? They quit the game because they go, "Well, this game's not. I don't think this is for me. This is not possible. I just don't feel like I'm getting anywhere, and I'm just dying all the time, and like I'm not having fun."
Yeah.
And it's not even just like I'm not having fun, as in like arcadey style. Like Nikita said, the game's not supposed to be fun, kind of thing. But people say like, I'm not even achieving any progression. I don't feel like I'm getting any better. I don't know how to improve. That's the thing. And I do. I don't know how you.
That's the.
It is quite difficult.
Yeah, that's sort of the great struggle because on one hand you want the game to be challenging because that's sort of the attraction of the game, right?
Yeah.
Like Dark Souls is like kind of that iconic game. It's like, oh, it's challenging, and then it's like, oh, I gotta try it because it's challenging. Can I beat it also? And then on the other hand, you don't want it to be such a challenging game that people feel like they aren't progressing or they can't achieve anything. Like you wouldn't want a scenario where you're new to the game and you've expended all you're literally living scav run by scav run. Like that's your loadout every raid. So they need to have like some light, very light I don't know what's the correct word, comeback systems or some way to like
No, I think that makes sense because like there's nothing worse as a new player than using basically your last like proper PMC kit, dying, and then doing a scav run, dying immediately at the beginning, having to like 20 minutes to wait, and then like going, right, well, I've either got to wait 20 minutes or I got to play PMC with like no gear. And when you're sat in that spot, and I've been sat in that spot, and you think, and you play PMC one more time and you die instantly, and you're like, okay, my scav's still got 14 minutes. And you're like, man, this game is really hard. And it's it would be good to have some kind of, I mean, I guess the scav runs kind of are that safety net in some ways. But yeah, look, I don't think there's any issue with giving people just like some other bits and pieces if your net worth goes down below a certain amount, or you get some like a little mini care package once a day from Prap or whatever. It's fine because it doesn't really detract from anything, and all it is kind of a you've already hit rock bottom. No, you don't need to prove anything. No one needs to prove anything at this point. It's like, yes, I've proven that I've hit rock bottom. Right now, let's work on building a way out of this, because just sitting here is no life. And like, if someone ends up just getting stuck in that downward spiral, they're just going to be there forever. To answer your question previously, by the way, I don't think I've got a single gun back in the last 3 weeks playing solo on insurance. As a random side point, I'm running like nice-ish guns, but I think I may have got one back, and that was when I was playing duos with my sister. And that was because I died and she didn't, and I died in the middle of nowhere. But I'm getting very, very little back right now. It's rough for solos.
Yeah, I was watching some other like very good PvP streamers, and they never insure
other
anything.
Very good PvP streamers. I wouldn't want to be compared to very good PvP streamers. That's for sure.
I was kind of surprised. I was like, man, you're not gonna insure that armor? Like that's a slick. Like, I mean, I feel like, but then again, it's like, yeah, that is a slick. Like it's just crazy. They just don't insure, and it's just like, I don't know.
Maybe they're so used to playing labs. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
If I don't take a face shield with me, I'll insure everything.
Well, they were saying it wasn't worth insuring. And
probably just because of
I guess
after they've increased the amount that it costs, the return rate on them is so low in compared to that's the thing, right? Like if I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like I still auto insure everything, but maybe I need to think about it a bit more carefully, because like, so if I'm not taking face shield, I'll insure everything, because there is a chance that I get one tapped in the head by a scav in the middle of nowhere and I get my whole loadout back. That is possible, and that will happen.
Yeah,
sometimes.
That is possible.
Whereas maybe if I'm going like super thick, like I don't know, it's almost like the better gear you have, You're not going to die to scavs. You're only going to die to
Yeah.
players, and then it means that your gear is certainly going to go.
Yeah, I was almost thinking even just ensuring for the fact that you could ditch your broken armor for their armor.
Yeah,
But then it's like, well, if you're running the best possible armor in slot, there's a chance that that armor more than likely is still gonna be very usable,
yeah. I guess
you
like
know?
that's the difference,
So
right?
it is kind of a
If you're like a top level PvP person, you already make plenty of money from doing
yeah.
the various things, and you're unlikely to die. As you say, you're not really going to be insurance frauding stuff because you're going to have to swap over from your top tier thing to something that's maybe like second tier with other people,
Mhm.
and so it's not those situations that people are normally using insurance for aren't really present. You're not dying to scouts in the middle of the nowhere. I mean, I guess the only time like there are sometimes I got like some decent armor back, but I guess like the times that you get sniped from long range are sometimes the times where you get it back because like people can't always come and actually get your stuff because there might be another fight in between, or they get distracted, or they can't even find your body because it was miles away. And by the time they get to you, there's trees everywhere and stuff. It's quite difficult to see you, that kind of thing. I don't know. I'm still going to be insuring everything for now, but it's an interesting point. It's always good to go back and like question the original assumptions as to why you insure everything all the time and why it's so good. If they made the insurance like 2 times the price of the item, clearly we wouldn't do it, right? So there's a threshold somewhere, and so it's about thinking about where that threshold actually is.
Yeah.
So it's a very good point. It's a very good point. It's easy to set yourself into the old patterns and not think twice about it.
Yeah. I think we're running a
I
bit out
think
of
I
time.
think so. I think so.
Yeah. I think there's so much more we could cover here, though.
It's a good topic. It's a very,
Yeah.
very good topic.
I
Do you have any more
wanna
points you want to say before we wrap up?
um, a bit of a teaser is,
Okay.
I think what they could do, and maybe this is a case of trying to please everyone, but I think what they could do is because I feel like the gap between new players and veteran players is just so big, right?
Yeah.
That then there's like these certain milestones you hit as you progress, right? Like, I can't think of one. Like unlocking Jaeger is like a milestone. Unlocking the flea market is like a
Yeah.
milestone. Like the change from 1 to 10 is huge. Like just hitting 10 is
Mhm.
like you unlock more. Like for the veteran players, they can do it faster. So I guess what I'm getting at is I would like to see the sort of on the low end, the the game be a little bit easier. Maybe not easier is the right word, but have these like mechanics or systems to uh yeah, I guess easier. I don't know. I have to brainstorm a bit more. But then at the top end, make the game harder. Kind of like what I was saying with like the insurance,
Yeah.
right? Like you're level 60, it's going to cost you more to insure because you're level 60. Your level 40 strength, that level 41 strength is going to cost is like going to take a lot longer. You know what I mean? Sort of making the and maybe this isn't a good maybe it isn't all good because these are sort of like arbitrary constraints, you know. Um
Yeah. I do
but
still think that they can tilt the balance more, right? It's like it's so
I
skewed
feel like
already.
there's some room to
There
play
is.
with.
The
Yeah.
100%, right? It's like there's skills, there's gear, there's just knowledge. Um I mean, I'm sure there's some other elements to it as well, but those are kind of the
I was
three that I
even
could
thinking
think to begin
like
with.
availability of items. I feel like having very basic gear always available. Like you remember when you couldn't buy robber rigs because you can only buy 4 per reset
Yeah.
and the global stock would sell out? Like they need to make sure all that is just completely smoothed out. Like have very basic gear always available on the low end. And at the high end, have like the slicks, the slick barter tray, let Ragman level 4
Yeah.
is super worth. You save so much money. You could use the troopers you get back from insurance, or you could just buy them, but you save like I think you end up paying like
Which is insane,
260,000,
right? For Slick.
which is insane. Yeah, I'm using that barter almost every time I can. I just have a bunch of slicks in my inventory. But I feel like that shouldn't be a thing. I feel like it should be found in raid only. Have like the AP rounds. You remember the Lapua rounds?
Yeah.
They were like, oh, that's so cool. It's only found in raid, and the market. It was like a market set price.
Exactly.
I feel like they should do more of that for like the top end gear, like the meta
Yeah, 100%. Maybe you can buy up to
items.
level 5 armor with, Ragman or whatever, but like level 6, gonna have to find that in raid, Top level
Yeah,
AP ammo, gonna have to find it in raid, and then you're gonna have to choose. You have to choose what to bring and when.
yeah. And I just feel like they could make the mid game progression, mid game gear, all of that expanded out more, right? Because I feel like it's so small right now, in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'd have to talk about it another time. I don't want to.
Indeed. This is a whole topic for another
Yeah,
time. We're gonna have to note it
for
down.
sure.
We're gonna have to note it down. This is a good one. I like it. I like this. You're nearly dragging me in.
I almost got you. I almost got you.
No, it's a good point.
Stuff.
I do think that they should rebalance it a bit, even more, because you
Yeah.
want more new people in the game, right? As a complete final point and a random aside, I think they were celebrating the other day. If I just kind of look at the Reddit, they was just celebrating like 500,000 players, and I think the last couple of months they went from like 400k to 500k quite quickly in terms of subscribers to the Reddit. And I do think, I don't know, despite how difficult it is and how much people complain or whatever, they're at like 526 now already, and they're still kind of like in the celebrations of the 500. And I don't know, there's a lot of people joining the game, and you want to retain these people. I think it's important to think about
500.
it.
What?
500,000 people on the Reddit, subscribers on the Reddit.
Wow. Oh yeah, I did see that.
Yeah.
That is pretty
And
cool.
but now it's 525 already. And there's a lot of people coming into the game.
Yeah.
I do also wonder. This is now completely random and often a complete side tangent before we finish. I wonder if the big spike in people going and playing Rust because of all the streamers playing it then kind of diffuses people into other games, and EFT is kind of like the next one in the line of like with hype. So if people aren't, people going, oh well, I'll try this, and then like, oh maybe I'll try one of the others. It's like, what am I going to try next? Well, maybe I'll try EFT because it's kind of the next in line in terms of ones that have kind of had popularity recently and people are talking about. I don't know. I don't know either which way. That was a genuine, just kind of random thought question as to why we
I
think
want
so
to
many
do a
people.
podcast where we talk about the Rust and maybe also your squad.
Oh yeah,
Like things we could learn from other games.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah,
That's a great topic.
yeah.
I'm actually probably eventually. I don't really have it planned right now, but
You're
I
gonna do
am
a
eventually
video.
going to do a video on Tarkov versus Squad. I think just from I don't know, just
Be
from like
cool.
just to muse about it, just to chill and just muse
Yeah.
about it, because I think people like that kind of thing. So yeah, we could definitely talk about it too. There's nothing to stop us doing both.
Cool, dude. Well, I think that wraps up the show.
I think so. I think so.
Well,
Well, this has been excellent. I've enjoyed this
yeah, dude.
this one quite a lot.
For sure, for sure. But yeah, we'll put this up on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify. And it'll be going live on Monday morning, Sunday night. You're in the US. Yeah.
Excellent.
All right,
Good
guys.
stuff.
We'll catch you next time. Have a good one.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.